photograph as a reference and loosely painting a grove of aspen trees. I have the photograph, and I will put that up in the right-hand upper corner so that you can see how I am painting from the photograph. I'm thinking about what color of paints I want to work with today, and as I'm showing you the photograph, you can see that the paper I'm using is in the portrait, I guess you'd say in the portrait mode. I'm first blocking in and just kind of getting the motion that's in the paint or in the photograph. There's a certain stability in the trees, and those strong verticals are important. So instead of drawing a tree, I'm just painting in the darker elements, the darker shadows and groupings of leaves that are in a green. I've mixed the blue and green together the blue and yellow together, and I kind of drag one color into the other. I like the spontaneous application of paint, and I find that it results in something that doesn't look too labored. Instead, it looks spontaneous and fresh. When we use the side of our brush, you'll see me dragging my brush and dabbing my brush. This is to create some texture and some natural, spontaneous brushwork. It's important to stick with the large brush in these first layers of paint. It's just not something you can achieve with a lot of dinking around, you might say. You have to actually be kind of messy and not precise. You're okay with some going out of the lines. You don't want to stay within any lines too strictly, even though you are, in a sense, creating some lines. You'll notice my attention is to repeatedly go over the darkest areas. This sort of builds up a layer that is foundational to the composition of the piece. I just keep looking at the photograph and noticing the dark areas and the big, bold shapes. So I keep those two things in mind. Concentrating on darkening the darkest areas, and also concentrating on keeping the big shapes and capturing the big shapes. As I'm developing the composition, I always like a diagonal, so I took the tree that was horizontal, laying on the ground, and I have put it at diagonal so it can create that energy that a diagonal will create. It sort of gives interest, and it just helps balance and give energy to the piece. I like the fact that the diagonal does give that energy to the piece, but at this point, the diagonal is pointed into the corner, one corner of the painting, and that will be corrected later in this. You will see me soften that corner so I don't have a diagonal pointing directly into the corner. Some of these things will be adjusted as I go, and I may be thinking about it as I'm painting that I will be adjusting that. You can see I've used some pretty heavy burnt sienna in those shadows, and that will probably be covered more, and you can see me dragging my brush a bit there to sort of pick up the transparent quality of the thinned down burnt sienna on my brush. That brings some harmony, and again you'll see it's a diagonal, which brings in sort of another light source, and energy is created in that diagonal. And you can see me going in and just touching and dragging and swiping color here and there, building up the whole painting at one time. I think that's important. It gives harmony to the piece. When it's finished, you will have a result that's more in harmony. I'm taking now some teal to represent the sky area and just dabbing that into the white areas that I've left, and representing the sky and not just the light, I guess you could say. I like the fact that actually it's not teal, it's aqua, and aqua has more white in it than teal, and it's a lighter value. And so I'm using that aqua, touching a little in the foreground just to maintain some harmony. As I go, I'm trying to be aware of the trees that are further away having less detail, and keeping that in mind, that I want them to fall into the background. I don't want to do too much detail on those trees in the background. I need to bring forward the trees that are in the foreground so that the piece will have that perspective, I guess you could say. It's always about pushing and pulling. You can see me wiping color away and putting color next to other value. So it's pushing and pulling. You're pulling forward the lighter value. You're pushing back some of the darker value, and creating the three-dimensional or the depth of the piece so that it's not flat. And white will come forward more than anything else because of the lightness of the value. So I've got some grayish white, and those trees in the foreground will read as being in the foreground because of the white paint. This white paint that you can use when you're painting acrylic paintings is nice. I've done a lot of watercolor paintings, and so my approach to the acrylic painting on paper is a lot like watercolor, but the fact that we can use white and cover some of the mistakes or some of the paint makes acrylic a very forgiving media. As you can see, I've changed to a smaller brush. This is a small round brush. I'm kind of working my way towards working on detail and cleaning up the edges. Since I work in a very loose and splashy kind of drag one shape into the other and layering paint, the edges of some of the subject matter will be rendered more clearly once I go in with a small brush. Now you'll see me go in and make the horizontal dark area in that left-hand lower corner. That darker area that I've just put in helps to balance the strong diagonal and sort of get your eye up instead of going into that corner. That corner is widened out.